I'm Yona from Field Teen Center, and this week a teacher came in to ask us which books her middle grade students should be reading. And it's a good question because there are lots of books that are published for ages 0 to like 11, and lots of books published for ages 14 and up. But in between, there's a little bit of a gap in the current market. There definitely are some books that fall in between those two categories, but it can be kind of hard to tell which ones are the right books for middle grade students and which ones are either too young or too old. So today I've got some thoughts for teachers and parents about what makes a book middle grade-y, how to spot those books, and then I'll give some rapid fire recommendations of books from our collections. One common perception of middle grade books is that they should be clean and not have cursing or sexual content, and that they shouldn't be too violent. But the world of middle grade fiction doesn't have hard and fast rules about what content can be in those stories. Although middle grade books often do avoid those topics, it's not their defining feature. It's worth knowing that at the Free Library of Philadelphia, starting at age 12, a patron qualifies for a teen card, which lets them check out any book from any department. We always recommend that concerned parents talk to their children about what books they're reading and maybe even look at books together. However, real middle schoolers know that the world can be a dark place because they experience it. Reading books about taboo topics gives young people a chance to explore those ideas in a safe way and get more nuanced perspectives on those ideas than they might by just talking to their friends. These kinds of books can even give teachers and parents a platform to use to approach these subjects in a controlled way. So not every book that I'll share later in this video completely avoids heavy topics like abuse or alcoholism or death or even violence. For defining what makes a middle grade book, we're going to look elsewhere. One really good green flag is going to be the age of the character. Books aimed at middle grade students are often about middle grade students. So we're looking for characters between the ages of 11 and about 15. Young readers are often really interested in reading about teens who are just a little bit older than them. So younger students may be reading about slightly older students aspirationally, but more than the age, what makes a middle grade book is sort of the focus on what the main characters are processing and how issues are framed when they come up. Where older teen books are focused really heavily on finding your role in a group or in broader society, middle grade fiction focuses more on individuals' abilities and building confidence. So that's a theme we'll see a lot in the books that I talk about today. So when I do meet an 11 or 12-year-old who feels like they're too old for the children's department, or when I meet a 12 to 13-year-old who wants to read teen books but wants something that feels their own speed, these are some of the titles that I turn to. First, there are a couple series that are really popular both in the children's department and in the teen department. For example, the Percy Jackson series is an adventure that takes a typical teen and mashes it together with some Greek mythology and lots of adventure. This series is popular among all genders. And we also have a couple really good read-alike series for folks who have already read all of the Percy Jackson books and are looking for something else. The Pendragon series is another fantasy, sci-fi adventure with a lot of appeal for young boys, which follows a young boy named Bobby who finds out that he is a traveler, meaning he travels between alternative dimensions, trying to stop tipping points from going the wrong way. So each book takes place in a totally different setting, like this underwater world or a virtual reality world. And the main character ages throughout the story. In the first book, The Merchant of Death, he's a small boy. And by the end of the series, at book 10, he's a man, basically. So this is a really fun one to grow with. Pre-existing fans of Percy Jackson or the Pendragon books might also like Artemis Fowl. The main character is a 12-year-old genius criminal, and he gets himself into a lot of trouble when he kidnaps a fairy, and lots of sci-fi fantasy hijinks ensue. There are a few books that are only in the children's department instead of being cross-listed in both that are so good that they would still appeal to older readers. For example, Healer of the Water Monster was a book that won a lot of awards in 2021, and for good reason. The main character is an 11-year-old boy who goes on some adventures trying to heal a water monster that only he can see. And in doing so, he is learning a lot about environmental problems in his area and some kind of emotional and substance abuse problems that his uncle is going through. This book is also noteworthy because the main character, like the author, is Navajo. The rest of the books I'll talk about today are the opposite. They are not listed in the children's department, they're only listed in the teen department, but would be great for younger readers as well. One of these books is Lobizona, which is a fantasy book about a girl whose life is kind of difficult, not just because she's an undocumented Argentine immigrant living in the United States, but also because she has these really weird gold and silver eyes. And once a month, she completely falls asleep for several days. And she eventually realizes that it's because she, like her father, is a werewolf. And she ends up discovering this secret school for magical people like her. Another really great fantasy book with Latinx characters is the Shadowshaper series. It's about an Afro-Latina Puerto Rican girl living in New York City who's a graffiti mural artist. And she starts to find out that her murals can come to life. And unfortunately, some hostile forces are able to use her paintings as a portal to get into our world. For a few contemporary fiction recommendations, Perfectly Parvin is really funny and lighthearted. It's about this girl who gets dumped by her boyfriend like very shortly after they first started dating in front of everybody, and it's really embarrassing for her, and it makes her start rethinking everything about her body and wondering if she should try to like fix herself. Last but not least, for fans of K-pop, I'd recommend the book K-pop Revolution, which is about a girl who decides kind of on a whim to audition to become a K-pop star. And we get to watch her go through this journey, all the things she has to go through, but also all the really cool performances and costumes she gets to put on trying to become a K-pop star. For more books like these, you can also check out our YouTube playlist of upper middle grade and lower YA fiction books. At Field Teen Center, we always have lots of book recommendations on offer. So if you're looking for a more specific category of middle grade books or some other kind of book, definitely send us an email or visit us in person, and we'll try to set you up with some books that meet your needs. All of our contact information is in the description box, and we'd love to hear from you. So I hope this helps, and I hope you and your students or children find something great to read.